So here we are going to understand how the evaluation of the IC applications will take place. It's very important that the SAMC have a very empowered and adequate staff, which is essential for the evaluation of IC application forms. There are three broad categories which is very critical for the state. Of course, state has to establish an SAMC and has to constitute a state cluster evaluation committee. The state apprenticeship monitoring cell will undertake training of SCEC members on the evaluation processes. It will convene the SCEC meetings and coordinate with the state steering committee and NPIU and industry clusters for the evaluation outcomes, and also in case additional informations are required from industry clusters. It's also essential that SAMC has one point contact as a dedicated arrangement to ensure that the industry clusters are provided adequate information on doubts and clarifications. The SAMC will also does a very important task of collating and tabularizing all the IC application forms, because all the IC application forms will be submitted online centrally through DGT, and in turn DGT will apply a state filters and will forward all the applications received from the states to the SAMC. It will be the job of SAMC to collate all the application forms received for the state by the industry cluster from the state and tabularize them in a manner that the information can be collated and organized for the consideration of state cluster evaluation committee. Here's a composition of a state cluster evaluation committee. It will be headed by state apprenticeship advisor. The composition will have a representative of SAMC, RDSD, NSDC, state engagement officer, representative of state skill development mission, and industrialist from private sector. There is only one change from the earlier operational manual and the addendum issued on 14th of February, that earlier there was only one industry person was supposed to be a part of the composition. Now it has been made flexible, and more industrialists can also join as part of the composition. Anyway, the state has flexibility to add additional number of members in the state cluster evaluation committee. The organizing the evaluation exercise. So there are 6 broad steps which are falling into states and center purview. First of all, the constitution of the committee, state cluster evaluation committee. Then we want that the SAMC should conduct a briefing session or a training session for the committee members of the SCEC to make them understand how the evaluation exercise will take place, what are the scoring rubrics, and how the assessment of application forms will be analyzed. This is very important that a training session for concerned SCEC members is organized well before the actual date of SCEC meeting. Of course, DGT will forward all the application form which are received from a particular state through to the SAMC, and it will be the job of SAMC to collate and tabularize them of all the application information and attachment, proof, evidences submitted by each applicant IC. At this stage only, the SAMC will apply all the basic sanity check, ensuring whether the applicant IC is meeting the eligibility criteria or not, whether the applicant IC has provided adequate supporting documents or not. So at this collation and tabularization activity is a very necessary step, and this is why the SAMC secretariat will play a very important role. Of course, after this, once the information is collated and organized, then SCEC meeting will be organized under the chairmanship of State Apprenticeship Advisor. The State Cluster Evaluation Committee meeting will deliberate each application forms organized by the SAMC and then discuss and score each application form according to the consensus, and whatever is the outcome of the evaluation will be minuted and will be shared by the SAMC for the state steering committee approval. The state steering committee, which is chaired by the principal secretary or commissioner of the state, will finally will give a go-ahead on the shortlisted industry clusters evaluated by the SCEC and submitted by the SAMC, and in turn SSC will formally recommend for a further evaluation to NPIU. And then the central role comes into the picture. There is a dedicated evaluation matrix which will be used by the National Cluster Evaluation Committee to evaluate the IC application forms submitted and recommended by the states. Once the NCEC makes a decision on the approval, and then the NPIU will intimate to the states on the approval processes or approval outcomes. So this is in totality the evaluation activity. What is most important in this entire activity is there are two. One, that the meeting and training session by the SAMC to the State Cluster Evaluation Committee meeting members, and second, the collation and tabularization of all the critical information. Maybe Excel format could be used to capture all IC application questions in a tabular format, and all the information can be pasted against each question and then putting it to the SCEC for a technical deliberation. So three broad questions. One, the meeting and training for the SCEC members. Two, organizing and tabularizing all the critical information submitted by the industry cluster. And third, a technical deliberation by the State Cluster Evaluation Committee meeting members. These are the three necessary steps by the state for the evaluation exercise. So here's a broad checklist which an SAMC secretariat will use to perform a basic sanity check on the received application forms. So for an example, they have to check whether the legal document and the evidence to establish the eligibility of the industry cluster matches with the eligibility prescribed or not, whether the support letter submitted by the industry clusters matches with the template and the numbers required by the STRIVE guidelines. And the very important thing is an Excel sheet. So we are also asking industry applications to submit an Excel sheet giving the breakdown of all the members who have submitted the support letters along with few declarations, which includes if they were engaging apprentices, so the details of those, and if they are engaging apprentices for the first time, then the situations and the triggers of engaging and the reasons of not engaging before, etc, etc. So these are the 3-4 basics checks which SAMC Secretariat will apply while tabularizing or organizing the data received from the IC application form. Please note that when the IC application form will be forwarded from the DGT to the states, since all the application forms were submitted online, so it will come in the formats of attachments. So it is the job of SAMC Secretariat to put all the attachments along with the filled IC application form and the Excel sheet in an organized and informative manner, so that evaluator committee can look into this the details while evaluating the application formats. The IC applications should follow the basic eligibility prescribed in the STRIVE guidelines. So that's the basic level of desk level scrutiny and assessment that an SAMC Secretariat must perform, so that they provide a more meaningful and informative set of data with a tabular formats to the State Cluster Evaluation Committee meeting. It is also desired that SAMC should make Excel sheet of each questions, capturing each questions asked in the IC application form and pasting from the submitted IC application form against each column in the Excel sheet, so that when NCEC will review and screen the shortlisted IC application forms recommended by the state, so certain information that NCEC would also require. So if a state SAMC has done a job of organizing and putting the IC application information in a more tabular and organized manner post applying the sanity checks, so it becomes all the more useful and informative for the State Cluster Evaluation Committee meeting for the first instance, and then at a later stage for the National Cluster Evaluation Committee meeting also. So that's the job expected from the first level of a checklist. Here is the eligibility of industry cluster. So for an example, this is the broad industry cluster category eligibility mentioned in the operational manual, and based on this eligibility, the industry cluster will evaluate the application forms at the desk level evaluation. Of course, it's important to mention that certain states and geographies, including Northeast, J&K, and other locations, will have relaxed parameters on the number of support letters and other things. However, in such cases, such requirement has to be coordinated by SAMC to NPIU, where relaxation is possible. Now, coming back to the IC evaluation matrix, this is actually Annexure 15 of the Strive Operation Manual. Now, there are 7 broad categories on which the evaluation will take place. Each question is mapped with a particular, each category is mapped with a particular set of questions of the IC application form. There are each application category, the evaluation category can be given a score from 0 to 2. And then there is also a multiplication factor based on the weightage value of a question. Not each question carries the same weightage. Depending upon their importance and value, different weightage points are given to different questions. So is the multiplication. And the total maximum marks for the IC application form is 24. Once the IC gets 18 plus marks, then it qualifies for shortlisting. There is also a new concept introduced in the post-pilot selection, which is discretion marks. So SCEC also has a flexibility that it can award up to maximum of 20% of the total marks that industry cluster has received based on their own discretion. There are few questions where this important criteria has been prescribed, because sometimes what happens that evaluation is not leading to a number centric consensus. So what we have proposed is that there are few questions where the SCEC can put together and collectively discuss and agree and award up to maximum of 20% as a discretion award value. However, in such cases, if such discretion values and score were awarded to such applicant clusters, then in the minutes of the meeting, such provisions and rationale must be captured. So I'll just quickly take you through to the evaluation sheet also, so that we can understand how does it look. So here is, as we have mentioned in the earlier section, here are the 7 broad questions. And then scores can be provided from 0 to 2, so like 0, 1 and 2, and there is a multiplication factor, as you can see, and the total maximum value is 24, and selection threshold value is 18. So any cluster securing 18 plus market, 18 or more than 18 plus marks will qualify for shortlisting. So you can see that if you can detail these 1 to 7 broad categories, and the scores are 0, 1 and 2. So if you can see this detailing, let's say if you can see year of operation of IC, size second category, services offered by industry class third category, training center owned by IC the fourth category. Similarly, you can see this here. This is a populated sheet. Now this is a scoring rubric based on which that evaluation sheet will be processed. Now year of establishment of IC and IC staff. So here is it 0, 1 and 2. As we have said in the earlier section, the minimum marks is 0 and maximum marks is 2. There is a very clear-cut explanation of in what conditions the evaluators has to mark 0 and in what conditions and criteria the 1 mark will be provided and scored and 2. However, what we have also provided that if you look at in other questions, detailing is provided, which is self-explanatory. Let's take one question: number of member enterprises who have consented to be a part of IEI. That means the number of members, number of support letters which is collected and mobilized by the industry cluster as part of its application. So let's say number of member enterprises is below, number of support letters is less than 20, in such case 0 marks. If the number of support letters is between 20 to 50, in that case 1 marks will be should be provided by the marked by the SCEC members. In case number of members enterprises who have provided support letters to the applicant IC is more than 50, in that case the total marking should be 2. Yeah, so it's very self-explanatory in a manner. However, what we have also tried to do is that like that for each 7 broad questions, you can see here the scoring rubric, the flexibility bandwidth is provided based on which the scoring will take place. In addition, coming back to the total discretion and other pointers, so in the note section of the annexure 15, it's provided that SCEC committee members collectively can discuss the potential of cluster and award 20% of the overall marks to the IC should there be a consensus among members for a specific reason, which is this. We are also asking, when you read the question, you will understand this, that there are certain questions where training infrastructure and the availability of training need and infrastructure is being asked. So in certain cases, many a times the industry cluster, applicant industry cluster, if they don't have industry training infrastructure, but if the SCEC members feels that the industry cluster has a good team and credentials, even if they don't have a ready training infrastructure, so in that case, instead of applying 0 marks or 1 marks, if the SCEC members have in consensus and agreement feels that there are other ways, anyways credential that the cluster has it by the team and other important variables which is left to the industry and which is left to the SCEC members, then they can award 20% of the score against it. So let's say in such case, industry applicant in other totality of the marks has got 15 marks. So the 20% of the total marks is about 3 value. So 15 plus 3, 18. So like that, there is a flexibility provided for the SCEC to use its own discretion to award marks in cases where industry cluster has an outstanding credential but lacks the training infrastructure, or it has no any training experience, or it has no any experience on apprenticeship prior to this project. So that's up to the SCEC member and the consensus. We have mentioned about question number point 3 that in case such discretion is done, then the SCEC minute should capture it with the rationale of this discretion being applied. Also, there is an important point we like to mention here, that there are few industry association which may work with the direct members, and there are association which works with indirect members. What we mean is that the industry association or a cluster secretariat has a direct working relation with the members. It should, in that case, the SCEC should also look into this observation differently than other industry members which are being remotely coordinated by the secretariat of the industry association from a different geography. There might be a possibility that the industry membership engagement is relatively slow, or the mobilization capability of the such as clusters are relatively low. So we leave that such decision making to the deliberation of the state cluster evaluation committee. Now, going back to the evaluation exercise, what we also understand is, if you can see that there are 7 questions, and for each 7 broad categories their markings were allocated. Now we also understood after the pilot learning that it is important to map the evaluation category with a particular question number. So this time we also like to mention here is the evaluation descriptors. So what we're also trying to do here is that there are 7 broad evaluation categories, as you can see, and what is the important response as we have seen here is the number of as we have seen the number of establishment of years of establishment, size of the IC services offered by the cluster, and each evaluation category is mapped with the question number, and the unit description is also provided. So for an example, when we say year of establishment of IC, so if you have a look at it, year of operation of IC, this is one evaluation category. The scoring rubric is year of establishment of IC, 0 to 1 score has to be done like this. Now, to help the SCEC further in understanding which part of the IC application forms give me this understanding of year of establishment. So this is where the evaluation descriptors come into the picture. So if you can see here, year of establishment of IC is mapped with question number 1F and 1G. Here the units are number of years and IC staff. So what the evaluation will look into, it will look into the number of years and IC staff. Let's take a quick example. So if you see the scoring rubric, the year of establishment, it takes into account number of ICs not older than 3 years. That means the unit is year, and second, the IC organization has full or part-time staff. So it means there are two variables that the cluster committee, evaluation committee will look into while using this scoring rubric. So going back to the level evaluation descriptors, it is this question category, year of establishment of IC, is mapped with the question number 1F and 1G, and the units are like this. Now we have prepared a detailed sheet to help the SCEC to identify and capture all these 7 categories where they are mapped and against which question. So I'll take you through the example of this. Here, this is evaluation descriptors. So here, evaluation of all the 7 evaluation categories, question number 1, 2, services offered by IC, 4, 5, 6, and understanding of industry 7. So all the 7 evaluation categories as mentioned here, and we have mapped the question 1F, 1G. So let's and then there is a description also provided to help the state cluster evaluation committee members to understand what actually we are trying to evaluate and what are the parameters which has to be culled from the IC application form for the assessment of the applications. So as we have mentioned, this is mapped with question number 1F and 1G. So we'll quickly show you. This is talking about year of establishment for an example, which is mapped with 1F and 1G. So here is an application form for a quick review. Question number 1 and F, 1F. If you see, 1F is year of establishment and 1G number of staff employed by IC. So that's this is where the evaluator descriptor comes into the picture. It maps each evaluation category with a particular application IC. Now let's take another example, size of IC. Now it is mapped with a question number 5.3 and 5.4. Let's see the description for understanding. What the description says. Let's take it. Number of member enterprises who have consented to part of IAI. Okay. Now what it says is, in case number of members enterprises is below 20, and then provide 0 value. If number of support letters between 20 to 50, then give 1 value. Score. If the number of members is more than 50, then provide 2. Now it's not just number of support letters. There's another requirement, and also you have to make sure that representation of MSME against the total number of support letters. So let's say there are 20 members who have given support letters to the industry cluster. Now out of the 20, how many are MSME? In case the percent of MSME is less than 50% and the support letters is also less than 20, then it will be given 0 marks. Correct? Now, so is to understand, if the support letters provided by the applicant IC is more than 20 but lesser than 50, and the presentation of MSME of the support letters is about less than 80% and higher than 50%, then score provide the SCEC will score it 1. Now where is in the IC application form this information can be culled up? can be extracted. So this is where the descriptors come into the picture. If you look at the unit size of the IC, question number, it is mapped to the question number 53 and 54. So you go back to the IC application form and find the question number 53 and 54. Yeah, here it is. So 53 is number of member industries who will participate in IAI implementation. This is actually the number of members who have given support letters. And then 54, number of MSMEs. So you have to check what is the number of support letters submitted by the IC application, and what is the percent of MSMEs who are represented in out of the pool of the support letters. So when you look at and correlate these two data, then you can score this rubrics. You can use these scoring rubrics. So that's the advantage of this evaluation descriptor. Like we have given example of question 1 and 2, like that all the evaluation categories like services offered by IC, it can be extracted by question number 1H, 1I and 1J. So I'll just quickly take you through this as well. Services offered by ICs 1H, I and J. So this is an IC application form. So suppose this is what you get from potential clusters. So if you look at this, this is 1H. So this is the main services offered by IC. So there you go. You can find that each question is mapped with the label descriptor. So 1H, 1I and 1J. So these three questions are mapped to determine the efficacy of the industry cluster in services offered by the IC. So this document helps you to understand which evaluation category is mapped with which evaluation questions of the IC application form, and then the description, that what do you are going to actually analyze and assess. The detailing of the description will help that all the state cluster evaluation committee members understand the concept of the assessment and also well versed with the subject of IAI. So this is something which we have learned from the pilot and tried to introduce in this scale up phase, so that there is a very minimal loss of translation and a confusion in interpreting the evaluation criteria. So you already had the evaluation matrix with rubrics, which gives what are the condition in which you will score 0, what are the conditions you will score 1, and when you mark 2. On top of that, what we have tried to do, we have also mapped which eligibility evaluation category maps with which question, and additional set of description to ensure that all of us are in the same page. So that's the objective of this evaluation descriptors. Now when you go and see the IC application form, you will understand that not all questions are aligned with evaluation matrix. There are still many questions which are not mapped with evaluation score, and which are very interesting. So what we have tried to do is, we have also mapped those questions which are not mapped with evaluation score but have a very importance in the evaluation exercise, and also opens up a very interesting capability statement about the potentiality of the industry cluster. So for an example, there are question number in the IC application form, question number 2B, 3B, like that. These are the questions which we have identified, and what are the categories of it. So for an example, we'll just tell you about let's say anything. 5.6. If you go to the question number 5.6, so this is an IC application form, and I will just take you to the question number 5.6. Pipe, here's a pipe, and question number 5.6. Yeah, if you look at this, we are asking this information from the industry cluster from the IC application form, but why it is not part of the evaluation? Because there is a very interesting insight these questions throw. So if you read this question, it says number of members who have discontinued engaging apprentices. So what it tries to do is, by this information we will try to understand what are the number of establishments who were engaging apprentices earlier but had discontinued, but now with IAI getting introduced they are finding a new confidence that they can engage apprentices again. So this is a new insight. Like that, what we have tried to do, this all questions which are listed here, these questions are they throw very important signals. So going back, all the detailing is provided in the same sheet. So if you open the level descriptor document which is provided, and we have provided you can download this Word document in the description in the YouTube document. So here we have provided is here. So questions which are qualitative and not mapped with evaluation score. So here we have provided all the detailing. What is important here, that it's not necessarily required that all questions lead to assessment, but there are very significant questions which opens up a very interesting character of the cluster, which put together assessors in the evaluation committee can consider to understand the potential of the cluster and make sure that how it is fitting into the scheme of things. So all the description are provided. I will quickly take you through one example for that matter. There is a question number 2B. So if you go to the application form, it is an IC application form, and if you look at question number 2B, yeah, it's the character of the cluster. We are asking what kind of cluster you are, whether you are a cluster, mixed cluster, or a specific domain cluster. In that area, we are asking a question number B. There it is, employment scenario in the cluster. And here we are asking about total numbers in the cluster, total employment that the cluster members has put together, generated, number of entry-level jobs that the cluster produced. So while these questions are not really connected with evaluation, but they throw very interesting insights. What are the insights? Here you can understand. So 2B1 is employment. What it does is, it throws for the first time the empirical evidence of number of potential apprentice opportunities. So for an example, if there is a total employment of 2000 number of workers, there are 2000 workers working in the cluster, and if you apply a basic 2.5 to 15% apprenticeship band, then you understand how much is the training opportunity exists in the cluster. Similarly, number of entry-level new hires, in that example 100. So let's say in that cluster there were 100 newly entry-level job opportunities created in the last year. That means immediate level apprentice opportunity of 100 numbers were available. Like that, these questions are very interesting, which will uncover interesting insights for the SAMC, and based on that, additional set of interventions can be planned and designed. So these are the questions which are not which are qualitative and not mapped with the evaluation. So this actually, as we have mentioned, all these questions uncover untapped potential of opportunities, irrespective of whether the industry cluster is selected or not. But once SAMC actually does a collation of the IC application forms in a tabular format in an organized manner, it will throw us very interesting data and information. So one task is of course to evaluate IC application and screen it based on the strive conceptual understanding, but the other output of this exercise, that we will get huge data and very interesting data which could be used by the SAMC in otherwise to design interventions on apprenticeship using clusters as epicenters. Now, what we also tried to highlight that there is additional video tutorial on how to fill the IC application form. We would request the SCEC members also to see and go through that video, because during how the application form is submitted and filled, there also you will get an understanding what is the expectation from the IC to submit, what is the standard expectation, and what we are trying to assess. So there, if you have a look at that video, you will understand what is the evaluation metrics parameters we are also trying to see. In addition, the as we have provided in this document, in this with along with this video tutorial, we are also providing the new set of SCEC application evaluation descriptor. It captures two broad categories. One, it captures understanding of evaluation descriptors which are mapped with evaluation categories, and it captures those questions also which are qualitative in nature and have immense importance for the state but not mapped with the evaluation score. If a SCEC considers both the evaluation exercises, and through a very thorough deliberation, we are quite confident and sure that the SE applications can be screened with a more informed manner. And with this document, where which is we are calling it a descriptor document, where unit and question number is also mapped, we hope that the confusions and uncertainty and interpretation can be avoided. On top of it, we also we will conduct some webinars for the SAMCs to address their doubts and FAQs in case they have it. But that's a quick document capturing how the evaluation will take place. To conclude in the entire tutorial, there are few fundamentals which we have figured and wanted to highlight, as that the whole objective is to assess the responsiveness of MSMEs, and the concept is being introduced for the first time in India. So we are trying to understand what could be the new implementation framework. So keep this in mind while evaluating the implementation frameworks. It's not necessary that we always look at for the numbers and quantitative data to assess. There are a lot of information which are quantitative in nature, which can be only assessed by the consultation and dialogue with among the SCEC members. We also understand there are a lot of active areas where we have to appreciate innovation and creativity. We have also mentioned that we don't have to look at from the numbers and volume perspective. We have to look at from each applications from the value additional and additionality perspective. We have to also ensure that irrespective of the size and other things, sometimes simplicity and being smaller can also throw surprises. It's not important that only IC applications which having a great turnaround are 50, 20, 40 years old, and compared to an industry cluster which is just about 4 years or 5 years old, it is absolutely a wrong comparison. Though in the scoring rubric there is a weightage point for a different experience set and other quantitative data. However, what we're trying to say is that sometimes even a smaller organization can throw surprises. There is a bit of creativity, and sometimes we should not undermine the small organizations with a lesser credibility. Sometimes the team and the people around and the partnership around the industry clusters can do the miracles compared to their existing credentials. So in totality, we have to look the IC application forms from a very innovative angles and evaluate it. So, and that's what the entire evaluation exercise will be completed. So to conclude this, you already have an Annexure 15 which you can use as a standard evaluation sheet. This has 7 broad categories and the scoring flexibility and the multiplication score. We have highlighted that what is the threshold value to shortlist. The same annexure has the total scoring rubric values for each of the evaluation categories, and in that we have also introduced a new document this time to help you understand the mapping of question with a specific evaluation category through this evaluator descriptors, which has a dedicated section called description, where the unit values and the question number mapped is discussed and elaborated in detail. Apart from that, there's also a category we have introduced this time for those questions which are qualitative in nature and not mapped with the evaluation exercise, but have a very important argument to establish the credential of the industry cluster. With that, we would like to say thank you to you. And in that case, in case if you have any doubts or any queries, you can reach out to us in this email address, and we will happy to sort out your questions. We will soon going to organize webinar with SAMCs to take care of their doubts and queries on evaluation exercises. Thank you.